Good evening. My name is Danielle Loring, and tonight we're going to be holding the public informational meeting regarding the Transportation Enhancement Grant Main Street Sidewalk Project. I'm going to outline what our process is going to be. So first I want to remind everyone to sign in on the sign-in sheet at the front of the room so that we can document that you've been here. And then I'm going to talk about the history of the project and how it is that we came upon this grant and this project. And then Owens is going to talk about the process. He's our engineer and consultant from Sebago Technics. He's going to talk about the process regarding administration of the Route 302 grants. I'm not Route 302, sorry, Mdot grants. And kind of give some background information on that process. I'm also joined here with the town manager, Don Willard, and Selectman Sam Gifford. So in 2012, the town of Raymond filled out a preliminary application for a transportation enhancement grant. And these grants look to service pedestrian or bikeways to either schools, government, or other connecting sectors to either businesses or other public needs. Originally, when we applied for this application, we applied to connect right here from where the school is to connect it down to the town office. But when we did the site walk with the Mdot administration that following fall, when they came down, they didn't feel as though this project was as feasible. And then we showed them the Main Street corridor, and they felt that project more fit the criteria for their project requirements. So in 2013, the grant for that project was awarded to us in the amount of $127,782.10 with a match of $31,945.52, which has already been allocated as part of the 2014-15 budget that we're in right now. So this won't impact any future budget because it's already been allocated and accounted for. So the reason why we're having this meeting tonight is we want to reach out to the public, the residents of that area, in order to share our information with you and let you know where we are with this project, as well as get some information and data from you, as well as addressing your concerns, so that we can help to shape this project. Because right now we're looking at putting a sidewalk in from the Route 302 end that is closest to the commercial district, where the sidewalk currently ends off of 302, and bring it down to where Meadow Road or Route 121 continues. And at this point, we have not decided what side of the road the sidewalk will be on. And Owens is going to cover what the pros and cons of doing each side and any issues that will need to be addressed as we go through this. And as I said, we're also going here to get your feedback and understand what your concerns are and where you are with this project. After Owens is finished explaining the process and the different aspects of this project, we're going to open the public hearing up to you folks, so that way we can hear from you. We ask that you either go up to the podium and state your name and address and whether you're in favor or against the project, and then allow us to know what your concerns are or any suggestions. Or you can use the microphone up front here and approach the board and point out your property and let us know any issues that you have, so that way we can work through this together. So Owens, if you want to get us started off in the process.
Briefly?
Yeah.
I know that you didn't have any planned in the program, but you might ask, why are we doing this? And the reason that we're doing it is along the lines of the Route 302 original development project, the sidewalks there, the community enhancement. We felt that would be a significant improvement to the town of Raymond. I think that's proven to be the case, to promote walkable communities, an enhanced sense of community. I think it's an amenity, certainly an enhancement to value for the residents who are adjacent to the sidewalk. It promotes walking, recreational activity, safety for the children, particularly the Halloween sort of thing that we do. And so we think for a lot of reasons it's a wonderful opportunity for the town. But rather than just obviously jump into this and go forward, without community input. We're seeking your input. We clearly want to see this project go forward if possible, but we want to do it in a way that would be compatible with the needs, expectations, and desires of the people who live adjacent to it. But I'm very excited about it, and I think Danielle deserves a ton of credit, along with Nathan White, who's not here this evening. He's ill, but in getting this grant and working with Owens and getting this far. But it is still in the kind of visioning phase. We aren't at the point of putting this thing into concrete yet, or possibly ever, I guess. But I'm hoping that once the presentation's complete and we're able to address questions, concerns, and any kind of issues that you may have, that you'll see this as the exciting opportunity that we do at the staff level. So thank you for coming.
Good. Good evening. I'm going to stand up here for this part of it for two reasons. One is I can point a little easier to the map, and two, I'm told that there's been some sickness going around the staff, so it gets me a little more removed from it. Again, my name is Owens McCullough. I'm helping the town with the engineering part of this, and you may have seen our surveyors down there this past fall with some paint marks and stuff out on the road. So the process we're going through is what they call local project administration. It's a program the Maine Department of Transportation established a few years ago, and it provides communities with some sources of funding with a community match to construct sidewalk improvement, pedestrian improvement projects. And that's really the fundamental piece of this. So as we go through this, it's really a stepped process, and I think its construction is probably 2 years away still, depending on
2016.
with the funding cycle. But the DOT has a pretty specific process we have to go through, and we're at the very beginning of the process, and it always starts with a survey. Let's figure out what's out there, looking at utilities, getting topographical information, looking at where trees are, stone walls, where the houses are, and that's what we were doing out there on the survey. And tonight, the plan up here shows a conceptual sidewalk on both sides. We're only going to ultimately build it on one side, but I wanted to give you a sense of what it might look like on either side. So we're looking for a little feedback from you folks tonight as far as what the preferences are for which side. And I'll spend a couple of minutes sort of talking through this graphic here and what we're showing. So starting at 302, we've got a sidewalk, and I'm going to call it the easterly side, northeasterly side, up through here all the way up to 21. And then there's another option for a sidewalk that's along the westerly side of the road. Now the sidewalk would be located, the road width out there varies quite a bit, but basically it's about 20 to 25 feet in width depending on where you're at. So what we're going to look to do is have a 12-foot travel lane on each side of the road and a 1-foot shoulder. So a 12-foot travel lane is pretty typical of a local community road, and then this 1-foot shoulder provides me a little separation to the face of the sidewalk. So from the center line of the road, if you stood out there and took a tape and you stood at the center line of the road and you pulled off in each direction, the curb would be 13 feet plus another 5 feet for the sidewalk. So it'd be about 18 feet. The road right now is out there about 12 to 13 feet. So we're pushing the sidewalk out about another 5 feet closer to, depending on what side of the street on, closer to your home, to your front yard area. When we did the survey, I can tell you that the houses on the homes on the westerly side in most cases are closer to the road than on the easterly side. Okay. The right-of-way down through here, this was listed as described as a 4-rod right-of-way. In other words, the colonial surveying, a rod is 16.5 feet. So the roadway through here is 4 rods, so it's a total of about 49.5 feet, 50 feet in width through here. And I'm going to tell you, when my surveyors were out there and they did the research, the right-of-way is not well defined. The property monumentation that's out there is sort of mixed-matched all over the place out there, just because of how old the road is. But by surveying principles, We essentially establish the center line of the existing travelway and then offset it on each side of the road to establish the town travelway. So it basically follows the road that's out there right now. So the sidewalk you see would be, it's called slip form concrete curb. I don't know if it's less expensive than granite curb, but more durable than bituminous curb. It's an extruded, they have a machine that comes out and the concrete forms the curb as it goes down through. It's got these fiber mesh particles in it. It holds up pretty good. It doesn't bang up quite as much as the bituminous curb. In Maine, with plows and everything out, even granite curb takes dings from time to time, but it's an economical way to put a curb in. Then the sidewalk would be a paved bituminous black asphalt curb that would be 5 feet in width, and on the back side it would blend back into the properties. Which leads me to my next item, is on the west, the land generally slopes, as most of you know, kind of in this direction, sloping towards the lake. And so the homes on this side of the road set a little bit lower than the road. The homes on the easterly side set a little bit higher, okay? So what happens is, envision you walk across the road, you come to the curb. When you see a curb, the curb jumps up about 6 inches, and then you have the slope of the sidewalk, and then if the land's higher on one side, the slope blends back in. If it's lower on the other side, it slopes back off down into that and to blend in. So these cross sections here, I took some sample cross sections because the survey's done. One here, section A, B, C, D, and E. And these cross sections show what most likely would happen if we put a sidewalk on the westerly side or the easterly side. So for instance, section E here, there's a stone wall that is actually, it comes right along the back side of the sidewalk and appears to be within the right-of-way, but when we're not proposing to impact that wall. That wall would stay, and we would put the curb in, and it would simply blend back into the wall at this location. And then on the other side, if we put the sidewalk on the other side, you can see that since the land is sloping away, it extends a fill slope. So you put a little fill and it slopes off, okay? Then as you move down here to section D in this location here, and when I'm done and you want to come up, that's kind of why I'm up here. You can take this and point to your homes and sort of fill me in on some of the concerns you have. And we did locate the large specimen trees all along it. There are these circles along here, so my surveyors actually located those along it, and then they located your driveways and your homes, and then I've superimposed an aerial on it so that it's a little easier to read. So section D here, on the uphill side, if I put a curb in on the uphill side and blend in so that it's quite a bit higher, so my slope, I have to cut a little bit of material out. That's this area right here, and it blends back in. If I put the sidewalk on the downhill side, again, I have this condition where the sidewalk comes up and then it's got to slope back off to meet natural grade. So you'd see a bit of a slope, a fill slope on that side. Coming down here to section C, you're getting a little more into the more compact area of the road, and the brown shows, you know, what the impacts would be on the easterly side and the westerly side, and it's much less through there. So on the section C, there's kind of a slight ditch line on the edge of the road, not much of one, but there's a little bit of one, and then the land kind of jumps up. So that would simply blend back into that land so that water from the lawns just runs over and into the curb line. On this side, so because the sidewalk comes up, if I'm standing on the lake side of the property, the sidewalk's going to come over, it's going to raise up, it's going to slope back, and then it's going to slope back down to meet the lawn. So instead of having something like this right now that kind of blends into the road, you'd have a little bit of a bump and a grade over and a slope back. You just build it up a little bit, okay? And that's what that graphic shows. And that's basically the same condition down here at section B. which is right here just beyond Mill Street, in this location here. And then Section A, it's basically the same thing again, fill the ditch in, blend back into the curb line, and then the same thing, you have a little bit of an elevated curb on the other side. At the ends of the sidewalk where it meets into all of your driveways, it would slope down, just like if you drive down and look at any other sidewalk, there would be a transition down into the driveway, and it would blend back into the driveway. Whichever side we put it on, there will be catch basins and underground piping to collect the water, because I no longer have any sort of ditches or culverts to do it. I've got to pick the water up differently. So we'll have to have some catch basins and piping, and we haven't mapped all that out yet. We know that'll happen. The first thing is to kind of figure out what side of the road we're going to go on, because for the town's standpoint, DOT standpoint, we need to determine that first before I spend any more dollars or money designing the road. We need to make sure we know what side it's on, which is why we're here tonight.
I'm going to talk right now because I'm getting upset because of the fact that you didn't even locate people, bring a meeting here that I know of anyway, before you even started this. What made it so that you made the decision without the people that live in the area? I mean, who in here really walks Main Street? I do, but I'm not upset by the fact that I have to walk along that road to get to 302. And I walk with my 81-year-old mother. So what I'm trying to figure out is, how can you come across choosing to do this without even bringing us together in the first place? Why don't you stick it back out on Route 85 here?
Well, I think I can try to attempt to answer that one. That's not really an engineering question, but the town often pursues improvements, opportunities that we envision to be a benefit to the community. And so it's kind of a chicken and egg problem. I mean, you have to have enough information so you can articulate a vision and a plan and a program. And so you try to get people involved as early as you possibly can. And so in order to have something meaningful to show you, this is kind of as early as we possibly can, because we're a couple of years out from actually doing something. So, I mean, could we have done it differently, better? I'm certain we could have. Could we have, we thought about it, going door to door, asking opinions, that kind of thing. But you go door to door, ask opinions, discuss things without anything really to show. So we made a decision to try to have something meaningful to show. And so that's kind of where we're.
You're wasting a lot of money on doing surveys, I think, before you even give us a chance to.
We don't actually think that, though, because we think that that it's money well spent regardless of the outcome. I mean, the mission of the town is to try to improve the quality of life and to try to improve the function of the infrastructure of the town. This is going to have drainage impacts, the safety impacts. I mean, that's really what we do. That's our mission. And so I don't think it's wasted money if it turns out that somehow it isn't something that the community wants. It's something that you explored and invested in, and then perhaps you decide not to do it, or you decide to do it in a different way. I don't consider that a waste.
Well, also a lot of this information that we collected was during other projects that we're doing, because I don't know if you noticed, but there were crews out this past summer doing the work in order to get ready for the MDOT to come in and do the paving, as well as the new construction down along the Main Street section for the town. So, I mean, this is all in conjunction with that. Owens is our engineer and our consultant for all of those projects. So,
But unfortunately, I didn't even get a chance to see that because I work in Portland.
well, I mean, I just want. Yeah, well, I understand that, and as I said, like, so, we've been collecting this information in conjunction with some other projects, so.
They need to go to the microphone down and make sure reminding us.
Oh, yeah. So just we'll get to the public comment section in just a moment, so that way we can address everybody's concerns all at once right as soon as Owens is done with his presentation.
Okay, well, I'm pretty close to being done. It sounds like everybody has some comments, so that's good. Again, the survey work that was done here, and let me go a little further with what Don and Danielle was saying. This survey work, whether a sidewalk project happens or not, is of benefit, because we actually did survey work on the other end where we're doing drainage improvements in the next year, some road reconstruction. That benefit carries on all the way down through here. So there's multiple benefits to the survey work that's done. Where we're stopping right now is we're not doing all the design work for this until we get feedback from the public. And with that, I'll open up to public.
All right, so as I said, This is the opportunity for you folks to come and let us know how you feel. We ask that you either use the microphone up here and come up to the map and show us, or go up to the podium out back there. Please state your name clearly, as well as your address, and then, you know, your specific feelings on the project. So.
Can I say one more thing? Probably I'll say more than one more thing, but I wanted to tell you, having been here a few years now, and I can recall clearly the hearings and the discussions that we had over the Route 302 sidewalk, and we heard things like, it'll never be used, it's a waste of money, it's the ruination of the town, it'll change the character of the town. Why are you doing it? It's a terrible idea. I think most people would agree now, 10 years, 12 years down scope, that it has proven to be an improvement to the town, an amenity, an attraction. It's cited by other towns as an example of best practices, a good thing to have done, and promoting community. And that's how we see this. And in a previous community, same thing. I mean, I went back there recently. We connected two towns. We got a $500,000 grant, 25 years ago. At the town, it seemed to be, at the time, people were very concerned. They're very apprehensive about it, which you can understand. I mean, I can understand it. It's something different. It's something new. But now, this particular one connects the towns of Camden and Rockport through the arch. And people look at that and they say, wow, who thought of that? That's the most wonderful thing that has happened. It's an enhancement to the value of your property that we don't tax for, so we don't add value that way. But people looking at your home who might be prospective buyers would say, that's a great thing for children, for anybody who wants to walk and be safe and have that opportunity. So I give you that just to consider. I mean, change is hard, change is difficult, but I think this is good change.
Glenn Geisel, 7 Main Street. I'm the one with the stone wall that won't be moved, thank goodness. But I do have some concerns about my neighbors cutting trees, moving fences, power lines, power poles. If they go on the opposite side of the lake, they got fire hydrants that prop up in the middle of the sidewalks. People gonna be losing trees. I know there's concern of several people. I see you address the aspects of the driveways, and making sure that people still have access to the yards. But if you do it on the opposite side of the road, people are going to be losing some of the driveways. There's a couple of them that are very steep, and to cut out for a sidewalk 5 feet, you're going to make that even steeper. The other side of the lake side of the road, you're going to be in people's front doors, right in their windows. People walking by will obviously be able to look right in the windows. My other concern, big concern, is ATV traffic. ATVs frequent Main Street a lot. If you spend some time down there, you'll see a lot of ATVs, illegal dirt bikes, going up and down the road. Putting a sidewalk down there is going to open it up to them. That's already been a proven fact on the other sidewalks. The other sidewalks are a great attraction. They're great. The street lights make them look nice. The flags, the wreaths, I have no objection to those. They look nice. But they still attract the ATVs and dirt bikes. And you can ask Nathan about that. He stopped many of them on sidewalks. So that is a major concern. You can't keep them off. The other thing to think about, we thought about, is what happens if the school department closes down Jordan Small and move the library up to Jordan Small? The sidewalk's going to be for naught? I mean, that's one of the objects of putting the sidewalks in, is for the library, access to the library. We can sit in our front yard on a summer day and count on one hand the number of people that use the sidewalks down to the beach in a given day. We can use 2 hands in a given week. Most people use the opposite side of the road to run, jog, and walk on, so they can make a complete circle around. They don't even use the sidewalk. There's more people on the opposite side of the road from the sidewalk. Those are my concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Bruce, PV 35 Main Street. First of all, does anybody here want this sidewalk? You do? Okay, then there's a place you can put it, in front of that place. I'm sorry, I don't know you guys. I'm retired. I'm looking out the window all the time, and I see very little foot traffic. But like Glenn said, I do see four-wheeler traffic right down the street, plus snowmobile as well. And nobody ever seems to catch them. Also, what is the cost to the town so far for this project that we didn't want? You got that, Don?
Well, first of all, we don't know. The town doesn't. I mean, I get that you don't want it, and there may be some folks in the room who don't want it, but we don't know the town doesn't want it. And so I can get an accounting. Do you have an estimate of your engineering fees? I mean, I didn't bring that with
I
me.
think so far we've spent about $3,000.
$3,000, and you said the town match was 30-odd thousand?
32,000, and
32,000.
but from the federal government we'll get about almost 128.
Yeah. It's fairly de minimis money, but nothing is free today. I mean, if you see the drawing, you see the work that went into producing that, nothing's free.
Well, I think it's going to generate some expense, like they'll probably plow it, like they do the one on 302.
We will plow it, yeah.
So there's an extra expense. Somebody mentioned property marker. Well,
Property markers?
property line marker. Well, I have a hydrant on my front lawn, which I thought would be good for my insurance, but doesn't matter anymore, I guess. But when they put that in, I lost my property marker and they never replaced it. So if you do this, I'm going to lose the other one as well. Yeah, that's about it. Now, so you can't tell us tonight what your ideas are, which side and all that? That's why I thought we were here.
Well, we could have done that, but we want to get feedback. I mean, we have a preference, but we want to get feedback and see what you think.
Uh-huh. Okay, so this only goes to Meadow Road.
Well,
At this time.
At this time, but I mean, the idea, I mean, there are people, this has sort of died out to some degree too, but a decade or more ago, there was talk of, and somebody made the point, maybe Glenn made the point about the idea of the library possibly going to the school. I mean, that is a possibility, but it's not something that's on the front burner for sure. But there's also been talk, and this may not make anybody happy either, but there was talk years ago about the idea of aggregating town properties and maybe building a community center, a library, town office center on the former Public Works, Public Safety site. The 51 Main Street site, we tried to acquire that unsuccessfully. We lost by a handful of votes at a special town meeting, but we had an idea of building sort of a village center, a community center with the, town office, library, rec center kind of thing right there in the village. So I don't think that this would be the end of the idea of trying to, build community. I could see the sidewalk continuing along to the fire station. I could see it continuing up by the library, and I don't think the library is going anywhere anytime soon. But one never knows. But the idea, I mean, Raymond doesn't really have a kind of a center, a village center, so it's kind of trying to create that sort of feeling, and I think that's a positive thing.
Also, the scope of this grant only covers along State Road, so it's starting at the beginning point of where 121 picks up on 302 and follows it down until it transitions into Meadow Road. So.
Yeah, that was going to be my comment. So it goes there and then it stops, and I guess the walkers
for now
turn around and go back. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ashley O'Brien. I am 42 Main Street, and we have a home that is very close to the street. So if the sidewalk goes to our home. I was actually at my house when the surveyor was there, and he was touching my house. So I'm thinking that, that we might be one of the people that you can reach out and touch our house. But my husband and I are both very in favor of the sidewalk because we have small children, and we see that there is a speed problem on Main Street that is not very well enforced. And I'm sure many of my neighbors hear people speeding up and down in the night, in the afternoon. It's a problem. And I'm also a runner, so I'm out on Main Street, and I have felt the need to dodge out of the street in order to avoid some cars at some point. So I feel like the sidewalk is a very beneficial thing to our community because I do things like walk my children up to the playground. We walk to the Mosquito, we walk to Good Life, so we do hook up with that 302 sidewalk. And I have noticed that there's not even really like a shoulder to walk on our Main Street. So I do think that that's beneficial, and I say that at the same time realizing that we would be giving up some of our property at the same time to allow for a sidewalk on our side of the street because we are so close. But I think, and what I would hope for, is that the town would be seeing other problems that exist. For instance, the drainage issue. From 302 to Meadow Road, there's no drainage on our end of the street. And it's a real problem for the people that live on the lower half of the road, because we have runoff coming on. And then especially the homes that are near the end of Mill Street, we have the runoff coming off of Mill Street right into our properties. So I would hope that maybe at the same time that this project is happening, that drainage is being addressed, and that's one of my questions. Is it being addressed? Is that something that is being thought of at the same time?
Short answer is yes.
Great.
Once I recognize, having walked this and looked at it, that, I suspect that there's some drainage issues on the lake side. So when the curbing goes in, there'll be catch basins, underground piping that will collect the surface water before it goes on your property. The curbing tends to intercept the water that normally would go over, and it runs across and then gets collected in catch basins. And we haven't looked at how we're going to pipe it yet, where our outfalls are. It all depends on which side of the street the sidewalk goes on, but drainage will be addressed. It has to be as part of it. DOT wouldn't let me build it without doing that.
Great. Well, those are that's my main question. But then my other question is, are you allowed to tell us what side you guys are leaning towards?
Yeah.
For me, I look at things, when I look at these projects, I tend to look at them more objectively from drainage standpoints, from impacts on properties, impacts on utilities, street trees, things like that, and how much land grading there is, what sort of impacts I have on adjacent properties. So when I look at that and I line up my columns and I put pluses and checks in each one, to me, the side that makes the most logical sense is on the easterly side.
Okay. And then my last question. If you put in the sidewalk, have you guys considered moving the road as well, or will the road remain where it is and the sidewalk will be added on?
The road will remain where it is,
okay.
And then we would add the sidewalk onto it.
Okay.
To move the road isn't really within the budgeting or the funding for it. And it's pretty tight in through there, so we have to be a little careful on that, because there's utilities and other things.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Other comments, questions?
You said you're leaning towards the east side. I happen to live on the east side. And so does, I guess that's proper English, my leach field. Now what happens when you start digging up and get into my leach field? What do you do about that?
So I'm sorry, I don't remember which house you were, but If you go out there right now, you have the edge of the pavement, and then there's kind of a gravel shoulder and some ditches, and we're really working within that area. So if your leach field is in the public right of way, you know, it would be important for you, and I'd be glad to meet you out there so you can show me exactly where your leach field is, and we can determine if there would be any impacts to it.
Yeah.
I think you're suggesting it's in the public right of way?
Bring a shovel. I'll be glad to get down there. In fact, you can do around, there's places. How about the telephone poles and the hydrants?
Yep. So the hydrants and the telephone poles, as part of the project, we will go through a utility coordination process with all the utilities, at which time we will determine whether or not we have to move poles, whether the utility companies need to move poles or not. Hydrants, and we located the hydrants. There is one hydrant that is right in the middle of a sidewalk, so Portland Water District would be contacted to move that hydrant outside of the sidewalk.
On the house side.
On the house side, that's correct.
Now, should this happen, are you going to eliminate my other property marker?
Well, I heard you loud and clear on that one. So I can't speak for what the Portland Water District did when they came up through, but one reason why we went out, when they did, this road has never been surveyed. We can't find any record documentation that it was ever surveyed. And usually what the Portland Water District does, when they come up through, they generally design based on very limited information. So I can't speak to what they did coming up through there, but when we do it, we survey it, we locate all the found monumentation we can find out there. We have public meetings like this to hear back from the public. And then when we go into construction, there's specific requirements within the bidding documents that if the contractors are going to disturb monumentation, whether it's an iron pin or a granite monumentation, that monumentation be reset. Now, if it happens to be in the middle of the sidewalk, it might be reset as a spike or a rebar driven flush with the sidewalk, or it might even be a granite monument. I can't tell you what it would be at this point, but that is part of the process.
I would say, as much as I like to beat up on the Portland Water District, they really had nothing to do with that. It was the town who hired an independent contractor from Massachusetts that put in the water line. And so, of course, we obviously strive, and we had Goral Palmer Consulting Engineers, not Sebago Technics, but another highly competent engineering firm that was overseeing that project. So if we eliminated inadvertently or somebody's property marker, that's a bad thing, and I don't know how that happened. That was a long time ago, but certainly that's not our intention. If we'd known about that, we would have restored it. And if there's some way to relocate that pin and restore it, we'll restore it now. And so my intention would be not to disturb people's property markers, but if we can help to delineate them and make things clearer, let's do that. But that would not be the district, that would have been the town who put the line in. Then we turned it over to the district, another project that we were able to get a grant for years ago. But so the town with Goral Palmer is an independent contractor put the line in.
Do we have any other comments?
My name is Judy Geisel. I'm at 7 Main Street. And I would like a comment that Mr. Willard made when we first started, that this was going to be done for Halloween. If you've ever been on Main Street for Halloween, it's not going to matter if there's sidewalks on both sides of the street. What happens down there on Halloween? And we all know. Both sides of the streets is used for a parking lot. Hundreds and hundreds of kids come from every place but Raymond. Are we doing sidewalks for those kids on Halloween?
No, I was trying to tell you I wasn't trying to say this was going to solve the Halloween issue. What I was saying was that it can't hurt. It's a safety issue, and so it can't make things worse than they are now. And arguably, it could make things better. I mean, having brought my own child down there, 10 years ago, and you know, it's not a proposition that before, in those days, we had traffic moving and it was not safe. And I think a sidewalk would be an improvement, wouldn't be the solution. I agree, people are all over the place, both sides of the road, everywhere.
And I would like to make a comment on what Sherry said when she was trying to say about how people seldomly use our road. We know there are a few walkers, and I invite you, just like I did Mr. Peavy, to come sit in our front yard and watch what happens on Main Street. There are speeders, and you take your own life in your hands when you walk on that street. And I don't understand how sidewalks are going to make a difference. And I just think that sidewalks could be put someplace else. That's my opinion. So, and I wanted to thank you for inviting us and having this meeting so that we could say how we feel. But I, for one, do not want sidewalks, even if it improves how the street looks. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sherry Clark, and I'm on 36 Main Street, and I'm very concerned about the side that I live on because my house is right on the road now. As far as people having children, young children, I brought my children up there. They were taught not to go near the road. Yes, a walkway would have been nice years ago if everything would have been moved ahead of time so that, you know, your street lights, your whatever, were put in place before the sidewalks were. I just feel like you're going to be spending a lot more money than you think just to put it in. There isn't that many people that walk it now. Like I said, I myself walk it with my 81-year-old mother. We just walk slow and we're very careful on that road. And then when we get to the 302 part, you know, that's our start-off point. You know, we feel we can walk a little faster. And if anything, the town, to me, should have spent more money on building up Main Street, leveling it off a little bit more. But as far as putting sidewalks in, I just, the ATVs that go through there tearing up the road, and the snowmobiles, and the people that speed down that road, and it's never 25. I don't ever see anybody go 25 down through there. You know, I hate to see a lot of money spent on something that, I mean, most of us people have been there for years. And, you know, it's a nice little village. And like I said, a walkway would have been nice if years ago they would have prepared for it. But it's an old village. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Kimberly Williams. I live at 32 Main Street, and I walk all the time. And I think if there is going to be a sidewalk, the east side would be the best because there's really no place to walk to on the west side, and you would connect to the 302. But I think speed is something very dangerous in Raymond. And I don't think being on a sidewalk makes you safe because my house was hit by a car. And I live right across from the church, 25 miles an hour straight away. So I think you've got to be ready to hop off of the sidewalk, too.
Thank you.
Hi, Sybil Cunningham, 63 Main Street. I just wonder if there's not like a compromise we're missing here where, you know, you said the sidewalk would be, what was it, like 5 feet? Like, is it possible just to widen the road by 2 feet? And then, you know, the people that do walk, which is not very many, have a little bit more room, but then it's not messing everybody's stuff up? I don't know, is that, and then like also the big thing about the drainage and everybody's worried about their trees, which myself included, I like trees, so.
We would, so my inclination would be that we would lose our DOT funding. DOT requires, having been through these sidewalk projects in the past, I've tried some at-grade sidewalks because of physical constraints, and they wouldn't allow for that. They want a vertical curb, which they consider, and you know, these aren't my words, they consider a non-mountable curb, so it's a vertical curb, and that's how they want to create that physical barrier between the sidewalk and the street, so that it promotes pedestrian safety. I mean, I suppose somebody wants to try, they can drive up over a sidewalk, but it does. But they won't. They typically won't allow me to do that.
The other important point that just occurs to me is that when you add an expanse of asphalt, it creates a situation where the perception is more wide open space, hence more speed. When you put the sidewalks in and the curbing, even though there's a, you know, the addition of the sidewalk, it has more of a traffic calming effect. You have more of a confined feeling and more of a closed-in feeling, and so actually it slows traffic down as opposed to adding asphalt, which speeds people up.
I agree with that. That's probably
So
true.
so that's it's an interesting phenomenon. So it's kind of an optical illusion, if you will, sort of thing. You know, even in the sidewalk that I did, you know, 25 years ago in a very well-traveled road between those two towns, and it was set back somewhat. There was a grass buffer, but it had a real traffic calming effect, which was unexpected benefit.
Okay.
Thank you. For her point about the trees, are you guys preserving the trees?
Well, we'll preserve what we can. So let me show you quickly on this. We've located the large specimen trees along this side of the road here. There's one tree that's let's see, what's the address on this? Actually, I think there's somebody. I heard PV. Is it somebody? Yeah. You? Of course.
You're hitting the lottery.
So there's
tonight.
one tree that's very close to the road right here. Then as you come down through, it looks like the rest of the trees on the easterly side would be preserved. Now on the westerly side, because you're much closer to the road, there's a couple of trees here, one by a culvert outlet, which I suspect would have to go no matter what, because if we replace the culvert, I got to be able to replace the drainage through there. There's another tree that comes up through here that's almost right on the sidewalk by 42 Main Street. There's a couple of trees, looks like one or both one may have to go by 40 Main Street. Then coming up through, when you get up to 32 Main Street, there's one tree that's probably, that's you?
You skipped 36,
Well,
which I have two trees right out.
the way the plan's drawn here, it looks like those trees are fine.
No, they're not.
Well, I mean, as far as us disturbing them from construction.
They wouldn't be. They're right past my house, and my house is right out by the road.
Well,
There's no way they would be, they'd have to take them down.
they were surveyed.
If not, they would be damaged, the roots would be damaged.
So tell about 32.
So there's a tree here, there's one tree right here at 32 that looks like we would probably be into that tree. Coming up through, there's another tree here at, I guess it's 28 Main Street, that's pretty close, and another one at 26, and then the rest of them
One
up.
at 26, huge.
Yeah, there's two, but one.
And
Okay,
they're,
let me rephrase. What I'm telling you, the ones that appears at this point might be impacted by construction. I'm not counting the number of trees on everybody's property. I'm simply pointing out to you the specimen trees that were survey located and what appear to be in the sidewalk, okay? I'd be more than happy to stand here and count all the trees on everybody's property if you want to stay to do that, but I'm trying to be a little more efficient with the time. Which one? 45 Main. All right, let's work our... Hang on, we're 45. There's 42. You must be on the other side. These right here?
Massive trees.
Well, that one's out of the way, that one's behind, that's out of the way, that one's out of...
The other side of Mill Street. The other side of Mill Street.
Right, oh, down here? These three trees? Oh, they're way off the edge of, they're way outside of our construction envelope. There's the trees right there, and there's where the sidewalk goes. And this scale is 1 inch equals 40 feet, so it's probably 15 feet or so to those trees.
What happens if someone wants to put a driveway in after?
Well, That would be up to the Public Works Director in the town to look at it. What we try to do through here is preserve the driveways that are in there now. And if there are concerns about driveways, that's a discussion that should be bring up to us now.
Yeah.
If it's afterwards, it would have to be a discussion with the Public Works Director, with Nathan.
What's the planning for the mailboxes?
Oh, well, mailboxes that get disturbed would be reset.
Reset where?
Where?
So plows can take them down?
If it's on the side of the sidewalk, typically they'd be reset behind the sidewalk.
How are they gonna
So
put
how's
up
the
a
next
mail?
how the mailman's gonna get to them?
I get trouble with the mailman now for crying out. I mean, come on.
These are all,
Maybe the mailbox is gonna go on the outside.
yeah, these are all engineering concerns that I'm confident can be worked out, and if we get to that phase, then we talk about the specific issues relative to each property, engineering issues, and there are lots of places with sidewalks and the people all get mail, you know, and everything works. I mean, it has to be engineered. You can't answer all the questions this evening. And then I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and no pun intended, but you know, trees, like everything else, I mean, and no one wants to cut down large trees. Certainly I don't want to cut down large trees. But if we have some tree disturbance and, you know, and there's a necessity to take down a tree or two, I would commit somehow we would find the funds to, if people were interested in a replanting of trees, shade trees otherwise. We want this to look as nice as we possibly can. And so we would plant some new trees, perhaps. And that's not part of the budget, but we'd find the money to do it because that's the right thing to do. And to landscape this properly and to make it look as it should. And I think, once again, back to the 302 corridor, we've worked really hard in a volunteer and then public-private partnership to keep that as good as we can, to make it look as nice as we can. And it's become a bit of a signature for our community. This would be an extension of all of that, and you know, not the flower gardens, certainly. I know those can also be very controversial. But certainly the idea of upkeeping the sidewalk in a workmanlike way and making sure that it's attractive and safe.
One thing I'm curious about is that my neighbor mentioned that, okay. I can be loud enough, but I don't.
I can hear you.
No, it's about the television.
I
My
know,
neighbor
I know.
mentioned about the, you know, the drainage coming off of Mill Street. And on Gay Ave, we have a massive puddle there always. Why do we have to wait now to discuss the drainage? Why isn't this problem being taken care of?
Well,
Which
we're
is
going
pretty
to take
important.
care of, this is an opportunity. It's a lot of times,
Well, you also have to remember that this section of Main Street is actually a state portion of the road. So we have to follow a specific process for any improvements that need to be done to this portion of the road. It's not town controlled. So any work that gets done to that has to be run through MDOT and their budgeting process. So, and through this project, it will help to mitigate some of these problems probably ahead of schedule from what they would choose to do. So,
right, and the quick answer, why not just go and fix things when we know there's a problem? Of course we know there's a problem. It's money. So we were able to dovetail that problem with this opportunity, try to put together a package that addresses a number of concerns altogether. And so apparently the DOT agreed, because this is a competitive process. I mean, they did, believe it or not, for folks who watch state government, local government, they don't have a lot of money to give away, and so this was something that we had to be selected based on the merit of the application against other applications in other towns. And so I'm sure the DOT looked at it in its whole and said it's addressing a number of important issues for this community, aside from the idea of the you know, community enhancement and the transportation enhancement aspect, i.e. sidewalk. So the drainage is probably important to them.
So I'm a little confused here on another issue here regarding Main Street itself. Coming from the church down to 121, it was all retired.
through the state.
I was told it was a state road. What about the lower end of it from 121 to the other end of 302?
Is a town road.
That's a town road?
Yep. So what happens
So that's
is
not gonna get
121 starts
repaved.
right here and then comes down. So this upcoming summer, we just sent out a bid package, and they're going to, you know, so probably starting, what was it, May?
So this way, down through here, on of you may have seen us out surveying down that way. We put together drainage improvement, ditching plans, and sidewalk. But improvements down through here, including some site distance improvements down around the corner that goes down by the fire station, kind of a steep ledge hump in through there. So we've designed that includes new drainage, ditching, and resurfacing the road, repairing the roads. We have a new surface on it, ground up, mill done. Glidden Excavating was awarded that contract in the fall. Because of paving seasons, we decided to hold it off until the spring. That work will actually start this spring by Glidden Excavating. We had the option to actually do the work and then hold off on the surface, hold off on the paving until this coming year. But when I tear up a road and it's gravel all winter long, it can be kind of a maintenance issue. So we decided to wait till the spring. But that whole section's going to be redone.
And that section is being paid for through the $2 million bond that was just was acquired, I believe, 3 years ago at this point. So, you know, that's why we're able to fund that portion, is because of all of that. You know what I mean? So, you know, we're trying to address some other issues while getting some other amenities at the same time, and also using federal funds. Because I said if we were to go, first of all, it said that portion's a state, so we would have a bunch of red tape in terms of having to do it to a different specification, and we'd probably have to hire private inspectors, you know, to monitor us as well as administrators to oversee the process, and that would be probably more expense with no help from the state. So, you know, we're trying to utilize an opportunity for the town to, you know, improve safety, aesthetics, as well as, you know, improve some other concerns that are being addressed. So at a fraction of the cost that we would normally get.
One thing that should be written down by the panel, I feel, is that enough people here have stated the speed at which these cars go up and down that road. And I know for a fact that if you have somebody there ticketing people on a regular basis, it will stop.
Well, we'll reach out to Cumberland County and do our part to, you know, help to see what we can do.
Comment from the Cumberland County Sheriffs, they sit down there at the church on Main Street and people flash their lights. Within 5 minutes, everybody in town knows they're there.
They need a radar unit, something. Speed bumps would do, it's 25. But they would put them in because of the tractor trailers.
Well, I heard it was because
Comment on that.
it was the EMTs, that's why they wouldn't put it there.
So do we have any more comments specific to this project?
Sorry, I beat you.
No, we'll stay as long as we need to.
Hi, I'm Michelle Carver. I have 51 Main Street, which I think is right on the corner, so the curb would probably take a lot of the corner, which is fine because I think I like the idea. My question is, so you may be leaning towards putting it on the other side of the road. Is that what you call the westerly side?
Well, I want to be careful. I was asked.
I'm sorry.
I was asked, you know, did we have a preference? And you know, when I look at these roads, I look at them objectively on where we see the best interconnection of sidewalks, where we see what's most amenable to landforms, construction, drainage, all of that. And when I look at all that, the easterly side made the most sense to me. Now, we're not married to that side. You know, that's one reason why we're having this meeting here.
No, I think so too. I'm not against that because of just the way the drainage in the land is and the way the ditches, I mean, everything. So how, would it go around, would the sidewalk go around the corner to the library and follow that sharp corner up Meadow Road?
Well, we stopped it here. That doesn't mean that we can't, you know, put a radius around this. That's a good question. That's a discussion, and that's why we have these things, because you people live down there.
Well, I wonder, I mean, it is deadly on that corner, so, I mean, if you're trying to walk right there, and you're...
So what I end up having to do if I run a sidewalk around a corner like this is we run what they call turning templates that drive like big trucks around it
Yeah,
to make
because
sure
the
that.
trucks do go right up on the curb and so, yeah.
Well, it depends. Like we could always, we could always go through the process and, amend the project. It's just a chance that we'll just pay a little bit more in terms of the town's portion, but we would always bring that forward to the MDOT, but it would just depend upon what their availability for funding was in order to go over our budget costs. I mean,
And I think it makes eminent sense to do that, and because we have to fight tooth and nail to get the funding, but I think if we got a strong sentiment from the townspeople affected and from the town, that obviously connecting the library, I mean, that's a no-brainer in my mind, but it's quite a bureaucratic process, I should tell you, to get this funding at all.
Well, just so that you know, the tractor trailer trucks, that, they do hit that corner pretty hard, so,
While we're at this corner, if I could ask a question, is
There's another road to the library.
right here,
Yeah.
right here. But I have a question on this parcel right here. Is anybody here who, that's a business, right? Yeah, there's
Right.
nobody here represent, okay, all right, that's all right.
no, that's 51, that's mine, I think, right?
We do understand the
Yeah, it's the
traffic
dentist
issues.
office, right?
Oh,
Yeah, that's mine.
you're here, okay.
A little bit of history on that. The original plan, if you will, of the now long ago select board was to acquire 51, take that down, and improve that intersection. That was the original plan. And then
Well, everything's up for
because we
sale.
realized that's a very difficult intersection. So the original plan was to acquire that property and make a safety improvements.
Oh, we can talk about that.
I was telling you what we wanted to do in a perfect world.
My other question is, has there been any talk about the lamp posts, like down on 302, the lighting at all?
Well, that hasn't been part of the funding at this point, so.
We could always go for additional grant funding, similar. That would probably be through CDBG or something like that for instead of in community enhancement. So, it's just kind of like a phased process. We need to do this in one step at a time. So
that's not part of this project, but if there was a strong sentiment towards it, it's something that could be built into the town's budget process as well, and or the TIP budget. So there's opportunities.
Well, that's my comment. I think it's a good idea. I think it will make the properties look nice, on which, I do think it's better on the other side of the road because the houses are close on the other side. So,
Better on which side?
on the upper side, I don't know what you,
The side, right?
yeah, and I have a lot to impact it on that property. It'll take a whole, it'll take a lot out of it, but I think it'll be fine. And walking on the road should be easier.
Had some interesting issues with that. They've got
Which topic do you want me to speak on?
the sidewalk here.
Oh, I was going to, actually, the thing I was going to mention was on policing.
Policing,
Yeah, but you asked me, I get, well, now the cat's out of the bag, but you were talking about policing and all that jazz. We just did a comprehensive community survey, and because Sam is an advocate for, more policing, but the survey came back with not more policing, with basically, we had about the right amount with the Cumberland County Sheriffs, and so hearing comments about the need for more policing, we do get that anecdotally, but the town as a whole, not so much for policing. Now, as far as the sidewalk issue, do you recall, Danielle? How'd that work out?
Well, most people wrote in, and not most. I would say like we had a couple comments, but most were speaking out with their concerns with the project rather than in favor of.
Concerns with sidewalks.
Well, yes, exactly. Like wanting more information of them regarding, because there wasn't a specific
Yeah,
question
there was
sidewalks.
an opportunity to say don't have enough information, which about certain things. So some of the questions came back with not enough information to give a recommendation. But I will tell you, in my experience, though, as I've said before, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but every project of this type that I've ever been involved with, and it's been a few, everyone I've ever known of, and it's been a lot more than that, has had the exact same concerns, and not to diminish the concerns, they're real concerns. But interestingly, when you look at it 10, 20 years later, I have not seen any situation where people said, boy, that sidewalk has turned out to be a terrible thing, that's the ruination of my property, that's been a bad thing in any way. I think, I had to chuckle a bit. I was in my previous community, and I was talking to a fellow who had been one of the great opponents of it, and he's got on in years, and he was telling me about how much he liked the sidewalk. And I'm not young myself, but I did remember him as a chief opponent, and now he's a chief proponent. So I think, you know, there's a leap of faith involved sometimes, but, you know, nobody, us, certainly we don't want to ruin your property value, your quality of life, anything to do with your property. We want to improve it. That's what our mission is.
All right, so I saw some more hands. Does anyone want to get up and?
Laura Jo Cunningham, 63 Main Street. So if it did go on the easterly side, when you get to the other side, is it the plan that it would stay on the easterly side?
Over to here?
Yes.
Well, I can't answer that because we haven't really contemplated any extending the sidewalk down through there. So I don't really have a good answer. I haven't really studied it to tell you.
So right now, there's not talk of the sidewalk down there? Okay. It is fascinating because the whole, like, to listen to everybody and that if we're saying to connect people and the consideration to get it to the library is not part of the plan to get the sidewalk there. But yeah, I'm one of the crazy people that does walk and run on the on a fairly regular basis. And, you know, I pick the left-hand side of 302 because it's one of my safest spots is where I feel when I'm running. And it's clear, and in the wintertime, the sidewalk's not even plowed. Litter is an issue for me. It's huge. You know, when I was talking with friends that were doing the 5K, you know, coming along 302, it's disgusting, the trash that's out there, and all the time, all around, and I just like, okay, now we're going to add this sidewalk, and I don't know how that's going to be taken care of. I try to pick up when I can, but, you know, the Geisels down in front of their house, I think everybody just pulls off of 302 and just opens up their windows, and away they go. And I do have huge, you know, concerns about the speed thing. I can, part of why I also run on 302 on the left-hand side is because then I don't have to, even though there's the traffic light, every third time that I come through there, somebody's going through the red light. There's a tractor trailer just barreling on 302 right through there all the time. It's not, you know, and you can tell people that know the road, they're like paying attention, and you don't like go on the light. You watch to make sure that everybody is stopped before you take off because it's very dangerous. And it's also to get to the other side for the sidewalk, you stay on, you know, it's still safer on that piece of it. And I think the speed is just a huge factor. I'm not, you know, I really like Sybil's idea of if there was a way to just make the road a little bit wider, you know, I am concerned about the whole sidewalk thing, and it's, and I would be a person that would enjoy being there, but I'm concerned for people's property and that it's a very tight place as it is. And I think part of the charm of the village right now is all its big trees. And so you start to take those big trees down, and yeah, it's great you were planting. I realize they grow and all of that, but I look down there and, you know, you look at all of the old history books and stuff, and that's part of the charm is those big trees. And I totally agree about Halloween. Sorry.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So thank you.
Nicola Joy, 26 Main Street. Can you go over the materials you were saying that you were going to use on the sidewalk again?
So the sidewalk would most likely have, it's called slip-form concrete. It's a concrete curb.
Okay.
It's probably see it all over and don't even, you know, but if you look for it, it's a concrete curb, and then the sidewalk is bituminous pavement. It's
So
pavement.
it's black pavement.
It is black
So
top.
it is not conducive with the historic value of the village. I thought that's what you said, and it's been sticking in my head. It's really not an improvement if we're talking about making something through the village, which is a historic area.
What would you suggest?
I would suggest if you were going to do it, just regular concrete pavement, just regular sidewalk, not a black asphalt.
Well, how about red brick?
Well, yeah, I mean, brick would probably be,
Stratospherically.
but I mean, if you're going to do a sidewalk, I think of sidewalk as poured concrete sidewalk.
So something we can look at. Concrete is typically a more expensive material and tends to be less forgiving for cracking, and unfortunately here in Maine, freeze, thaw, sanding, salting, salt and concrete don't get along very well because salt's very acidic and concrete's very neutral, and so you see a lot of degradation of concrete over time. I mean, we can certainly something we can discuss. It'll be partially about funding and an understanding of the materials and how they behave. Asphalt, like I said, is often selected because it's considered a flexible pavement as opposed to a rigid pavement. It tends to move a little bit more with frost movement
And the other things about it, of course, I agree with you, by the way, and oftentimes what you see is, and this is budget dependent, what I did in another place was a concrete sidewalk with a granite curb. But I mean, the cost of that is exponentially different, and so it's a commitment of the town, whether the town would front the difference, could front the difference, significant difference. Not the granite now, that's out of this world different. But the asphalt doesn't stay black forever. I mean, it turns gray, and eventually it's less obvious that way. But it is always asphalt, and that's not that unusual in Maine. But I can't disagree with the notion that concrete is nicer aesthetically for sure.
I mean,
Asphalt is not as nice as concrete, no question.
I mean, when we're talking about marketing it, as you're marketing to us as being an improvement, I don't find that a black asphalt would be an improvement.
Well, it would be a gray asphalt in a couple of years, and so you really have to look at it as sidewalk, no sidewalk.
Okay.
Colored asphalt.
Owens?
I thought I'd seen that.
Well, most of the time you see you see what they call stamped asphalt, or it's a texture put on the asphalt and painted. The DOT does it for median areas. They generally paint it like a red color. I don't typically, I'm trying to think where I've seen color. I've seen it mixed in concrete, but up around here I don't know that I've seen it mixed in the asphalt. It's not saying it can't happen, but I'm trying to think where I've seen it. I always see it painted, on the paving projects.
I think concrete would be a good idea, but I know what you're saying about the give. We don't want those four-wheelers getting the flat tires.
Well, maybe you got something to do.
Might run into my mailbox.
Not that this will help any, and I wasn't going to get into this, but
good point.
And I understand that. I mean, that's the story of rural communities. I mean, even where I live out in the East Raymond, there are snowmobiles, ATVs up and down the road all the time. I can't imagine what it'd be like if I was close to the road like you all are and having them rip by. But I have in my mind something about, and I'd have to check this with law enforcement, but I mean, they're permitted, and I know that they're not going trailhead to trailhead, and that's the argument they make, that they can go a certain distance on the road. A certain distance on the road. I don't believe they can operate on a sidewalk at any level. I mean, I'm not saying physically they can, obviously, but I think it's a violation of law to do so, is what I'm saying.
Oh, it is a violation.
But I'm telling you that they can run on the road, apparently under the law, for a certain distance from trailhead to trailhead. So, that's what they say.
The distance is approximately the length of my stone wall.
Is that what it is?
Okay, I have a couple other questions. We're talking about a design of an either-or. Have we discussed the possibility, as we've seen sidewalks shift from one side of the road to the other in different areas, to preserve some of these?
The only issue that would cause is that now you're going to be creating crosswalks. So then you're going to be creating a pathway where the pedestrian is in a pathway, and then all of a sudden you're going to say, here's a crosswalk, and now you're putting them in the road, crossing back over, and then crossing back, especially if...
Well, normally that wouldn't be an issue on a road that's 25 miles an hour if it was policed.
Yeah.
Right.
So let me try to expand on that a little bit. From a planning standpoint, obviously you can't eliminate all pedestrian traffic conflicts, but you try to minimize it. So if we move the sidewalk from one side to the other, pushing pedestrians from one side to the other in certain sections, that would add to some potential for pedestrian vehicle impacts. DOT, through the review process, it would be a very hard sell for me to do that, to work around the trees.
Okay.
I suspect I would be challenged through the design process and probably even overruled.
Well, listen,
But,
it was
but
one of
it's
those
worth, no, it's a good
compromises
question.
that I was trying to work in there.
You know, an interesting thing about traffic movement and speeds, there's a school of thought out there that is being more and more implemented, and you can research it on the internet yourself, traffic calming measures. And they're passive traffic calming through, if I build, it's pretty intuitive, but it's reality. If I build a long straight roadway so that I can see great every way, I'm going to drive to the conditions that if I can see far, feel comfortable with it, I'm going to drive faster. So there are communities now that are starting to adopt design standards, especially within tight residential areas, that make the streets tighter with sidewalks and curbs because it feels tighter, trees in close, signage, narrower streets that are windy, so that what happens is people feel less confident. They can't see as far. So they tend to slow down. And that's a school of thought that has started to come about. A community in Maine, Cape Elizabeth, has written that right into their design for roadway and communities. So will people speed? I can't, it's human nature, but with a sidewalk, and a curb along there, that tends to provide a different feel to the area, and you might see some help. I don't know what to tell you about the ATVs, but I think that might be beneficial.
All right, my last question to you all would be the next steps in the process and how this plays out from here on out. Is there a vote? Is there another town meeting? Is this going to happen at all? Or is the next step that we just see contractors out in our front yard?
Well, I can talk as far as the design process goes. As far as public policy, I'm going to leave that to Danielle and Don and the Board of Selectmen. I look at it from an engineering perspective. My recommendation would be the sidewalk on the easterly side for the reasons I've talked about. If a decision is reached to put the sidewalk over there, my next step is to start a whole process with DOT, developing what they call PS&E, plan specifications and estimates. I go through utility certifications, contact all the utilities. I have to go through what they call a categorical exclusion for environmental. I have to look at whether there's any environmental permitting, if there were streams or wetlands or things like that I'd have to get into. I've got to go through all that process, and that process will take quite a while to go through. Then DOT gets our preliminary plan specifications and estimates. They review it. They provide us back comment and feedback. Then we would go into the final design, assuming that everything's worked out, and then that would go to bid documents and construction, but the funding I don't think is available till 2016, right? So we're still another year out, and it takes about that long to go through the process with the Department of Transportation. It's not that they're doing anything, it's just a very formal process we have to go through.
So we're talking about the process of going through to completion.
Yes.
We're not talking about any more opportunity for us to talk?
Well, no, I don't want anyone in this room or watching on television to think that the conversation stops here. So, we have collected your contact information, so as the project moves along, we hit each phase, you will be contacted. In terms of continuing open dialogue with town staff, Dawn, myself, select board members, any concerns or suggestions that you have, we want to work with you on this project. Because as I said, the point is to add something to the community to bring a benefit to you, and then have you not feel robbed or, upset. We want you to become a part of this project and be as excited and, see it as an opportunity the way we do. So, my name is Danielle Loring. My contact information is danielle.loring@raymondmaine.org. My phone number is 655-4742, extension 131. So feel free to call the office at any time, day or night. I check my emails all the time. I want to work with you on this project. So, if you want to see some compromise, a shift in a specific way, we'll work with you within the parameters of the grant, so don't just think that all of a sudden in 2016 you're going to see contractors on your front lawn and they're tearing up your begonias. We're here to work with you on this project. So, anytime, day or night.
This is the beginning of an ongoing dialogue, we expect, we hope. We want to talk back and forth with you, hear your concerns, and anything else you have to say. Not anything.
And hopefully we go through that process and we come to an accommodation that works for the community, works for the residents, works for the town. But let's say everything goes to pieces and it doesn't. It's democracy. You call me up, you say, I want a berth on the selectmen agenda, I want to come talk to the selectmen about it.
Absolutely.
At any juncture, and or there's a popular uprising and you say, I want to run them all out of town on a rail, and you can do that too. It's America. But we hope that doesn't, we hope that there's some way that we don't go down that road. But that's what we're trying to initiate tonight, is that very beginning, and to work, as Danielle said, collaboratively over the next couple of years and see if we can't come up with something that works as a community.
Hi, Mr. Peavy.
Hi, I just got here. Are we saying there will be a sidewalk? Is that a definite?
No, not at this point. Because, at any point the town could just choose not to move forward with the grant. So, the hope and the intention is to have a sidewalk, but as I said, we want to work with the individuals, of this project.
But to answer the question directly, dancing around it, is the town could refuse the grant. The selectmen could say that it's over, we don't want to do it, and that could happen.
Well, it sounds like, yeah, you'll get a grant, but still Raymond would have to spend money out of its own pocket, which is our pockets.
Yep. That was approved at town meeting last summer.
It was.
Yes.
Next, who will make the decision on where it goes? I want to know who to send the hate mail to.
Ultimately, the Board of Selectmen will authorize the project in its final form.
Selectmen.
Yeah.
Okay. So our opinion matters here?
Yes.
By all means.
Why don't we just take a vote?
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a bad idea, if I show of hands, probably to look at, I think we already know who's in favor of it and who's not, but we could certainly do that if you'd like that.
I'd like that.
Okay.
So all those in favor?
Of working,
Oh, yeah.
of working towards the sidewalk as a goal, yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. You got people voting that aren't on that part of the street.
Well, it's the attendance of the hearing.
Yeah, and then, I'm also going to ask for those who need more information and those who are against. So those who need more information. So I have 2, and then those who are against. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 8 to 9. So and also, we also have to take into consideration that I've also been getting phone calls from other individuals who own property along this strip of road in favor. So I do have a spreadsheet that I keep as well.
Will we be access to their names?
You can come to the town. You can come to the town office at any time and collect the information. Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Jim O'Brien, 42 Main Street. I had a couple questions about the catch basins. What do those look like, and then is that additional area on people's property that would be affected?
No,
or
the catch basins are actually in the street, so if you've if you've driven along a street where there's a curb and you see a square grate that the water goes into, that's the catch basin.
And it's just there, it's not filtered out to a different,
Nope,
to a
nope,
pit
it would
somewhere.
get collected in piping and taken to an outlet that exists already.
Okay. And as far as the state's portion of the project, has that already been determined, regardless of the side that we end up on?
Yes.
So will that increase I mean, you've mentioned differences in the project on one side versus the other side. Will the town's budget change on,
No, the overall budget and the town's budget
Stays the same.
it's hoped that it doesn't change. I mean, that's part of the metrics of making the decision. I mean, the selectmen will ultimately make a decision. If it's still controversial, which side, months from now, then perhaps they'll have to decide that. But it should become more apparent as we move through the process where we'll be.
Anyway, we do have other funding opportunities available to us as well. So, I mean, if we found that this project, in changing it, we would always go back to Mdot first to see if we can get their contribution increased.
But typically it's fixed, though.
yeah, okay. And then, as far as fixing any drainage stuff, is there any other programs for the state, through the state, that would get those issues repaired, other than the sidewalk?
Well, let me answer that by saying that as we go through the process and we look at drainage and we come up with our design, there's always an opportunity to discuss that with the state for improvements, but I can make no commitments because they would have to look at it and decide if they have the funding or were willing to modify the agreement that's made. It's pretty tough to do that once they set those agreements. But
Well, I just am seeing that the sidewalks are a way to get the state to fund a portion of something that we all really want fixed, which is the drainage. And this is an opportunity to minimize our investment in it.
So if
Absolutely.
if we put a sidewalk on this side of the road, then we would be looking to deal with the drainage on this side of the road that is as a result of the sidewalk. I would not necessarily, unless there was other funding available, be looking at the westerly side of the road.
As we said, that's where the water's coming from.
Yep.
Is.
So again, I told you from an engineering perspective, I like the idea of the sidewalk here because it blends in. That doesn't mean that we can't, look at this side, but.
And you should, I think, as a matter of course. I mean, we know this, and we're very early on, but if we have serious drainage issues there, then we should assess those and address those and reapproach the DOT about those and see if there's some kind of a resolution that can be made with the DOT, and if not, then locally. Because I think it would be, a missed opportunity in the extreme if we didn't try at least to fix that as a part of this.
Sure.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It needs to be weighed heavily in the decision to get it on the lower side.
We're still very early. It's just too early to really talk about what we might do and what we can't do.
Okay. And my other question was the sidewalks, once they're paved and in place, how closely would any improvements of our own yards be able to be? Is there another space beyond it?
So from the edge of the pavement right now, for instance, I'm sorry, which house number were you?
42.
So here's 40. You're right here.
Paving up to my
Okay. So section B is
office
probably
window.
the closest to you. So here's the edge of the existing road right now, 12 feet. It'd be over a foot plus 5 feet plus probably another 4 or 5 feet. So from the edge of the road, the improvements over from the edge of the current road over would probably be in the range of 8 to 10 feet.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
An engineering question.
Okay.
How do you propose to blend the sidewalk at the end of Main Street where it comes on to 302? There is a rather large catch basin there now that doesn't work half the time.
That is Understood. That is one of those engineering details that we will be addressing as we move further down the process. I just haven't gotten that far yet. Right now, we're in the early stages saying which side of the road are we going to put the sidewalk in, completing the survey, beginning to assess some of those. So there are generally engineering solutions we can do to those. They have implications, they have costs, there's other utilities there, and all that has to be looked at. And that will be looked at as part of the ongoing design process.
So the funding that you're getting is only going to be on the east side, if that's where it goes, for just that side, whether it's tunneling the water situation to whatever, that's where your funding is on whatever side you choose.
The grant project is for the sidewalk
Okay,
and
so-
the improvements associated with that sidewalk.
So we're going to pretty up one side, and the other side's going to look like a dump. And it really does.
Because we'll have our nice tree.
All the
If
water
there are
comes on
other
our
funding
side.
sources, I don't
Well,
know.
well, what I would say to that is-
Or the, you know what I mean, to work through there, we do have some, like the bond, I don't know if that would be able to cover that. Contacting MDOT, you know, using some of the town's funding sources, putting into the budget and seeing it, like putting it through the town meeting process in order to get that done, you know. So.
Yeah, but I think
But
we could
it's-
address,
it's-
this quick answer
It's
on that
all
one is
part of this.
define dump, what are the issues, then the town and the state could take a look at that.
Yes.
If that's a state road, is the drainage a state issue?
It's all a state issue, but I'm saying, right, and so that's the first approach, but so we define, throughout this process, we're going to do further investigations, which will uncover some of these issues, that drainage, other issues that are important to you all, and then we can, you know, address each issue in a workmanlike fashion, you know, one after the other, and see if we can get resolutions, state or town or grant, local money, whatever. I mean, that's our intention. But I mean, to say that we're going to solve every single problem for every single person, I don't know. I hope we can, but I don't know. I can't guarantee it, I guess. But I can't imagine that what we're going to do in the end is going to make things worse. They're going to make things significantly a world better than what you have.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Ashley O'Brien, 42 Main Street. If you were to put a sidewalk on one side, I think one thing that maybe we could all consider is a curb on the other side. Just because right now the way that it happens is that the asphalt ends and then it's sand and then it's just our yard. So it seems like if we did do a sidewalk on one side, to have something on the other side that could help with improvement and safety would be a consideration that I would hope that you would think of.
Absolutely, thank you.
Well, these are the kinds of things that we should work our way through. And in that regard, if something occurs to you, if you want to send an email, you can do that with Danielle. Send additional comments. If you want to delineate those issues that constitute the road being a dump, send those along and we'll take a look at those.
Is there anyone else who has comments? All right, so it
Thank
looks
you.
like that we've, you know, pretty much heard from just about everybody in the room. I want to once again thank you for coming out and meeting with us. You know, taking the time out of your evenings to come and discuss your concerns. As I said, the dialogue doesn't stop here. You know, come to the town office, let us know. Owens and I will come out to your properties personally and look at your issues individually, so that way we can either address them from an engineering standpoint or put together, you know, additional packages to find out how we can work with the state to mitigate some of these issues. So even if the sidewalk project doesn't move forward, that, you know, that they become aware that, you know, look, we're not moving forward with this project, but something needs to get done. So once again, my name is Danielle Loring. You can reach me at danielle.loring@raymondmaine.org or 655-4742 extension 133. I want to also thank Owens, Don, and Sam for joining me up here. And please, you know, reach out to me at any time.
You're going to have more of these meetings?
As Don pointed out, this project will then have to go forward to the Board of Selectmen in order to get the final project approved. So there'll be definitely a meeting in terms of that aspect. Owens and I have discussed having more than one public hearing, or even creating work groups with you individuals. So if anyone is interested in joining kind of like a, you know, a community action group in terms of that, please, you know, let me know. So, but once again, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to meet with us, and, you know, and hope that we can work together on this project. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.